Hello, I'm Ciarán Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. Now, we're weaning a corner around the country. We're joined by sheep specialist Michael Gottstein to discuss some of the key management tasks over the coming weeks and the opportunity weaning presents to benchmark flock performance. We discuss various aspects of performance from ewe output to lamb performance to reasons for culling. Michael moves on to advise why it's a good opportunity to assess lamb weights, batch these lambs accordingly and establish finishing groups early in the season and plan ahead. We discuss ewe culling and taking advantage of the high cull ewe price this season to tidy up flock performance. And we finish up with Michael encouraging producers to examine how their flock has performed and think about what changes could be made to improve on it for next season. We start off, however, with Michael explaining how we benchmark ewe performance.
Weaning time is a good time to do a bit of number crunching, I suppose, in terms of, it's a time when you're bringing in your ewes and lambs and going through them. And the first thing I suppose to check is to see how many ewes reared lambs. Okay, so we all know how many ewes we put to the ram last October or November, and then look and see how many are actually went on and reared lambs. So there'll be a percentage that won't have been in lamb. Usually that's somewhere around 4 or 5%. There'll be a percentage that lost lambs, some maybe the odd one that died, and then there are a percentage that didn't go out with lambs for various other reasons. Maybe they lost a lamb at birth, maybe they didn't take a lamb, maybe they had no milk, all of these things. So just see what percentage of ewes are actually out there, and obviously the better that percentage, the higher that percentage is, the better, the less kind of wastage there was. The second, I suppose, statistics, Ciarán, to look at is the whole area of how many lambs we have. And that's a good proxy for, that's our best proxy really for profitability, the number of lambs reared per ewe to the ram. So again, same story, how many ewes went to the ram last October and how many lambs have we got now, and divide one by the other. So if 100 ewes went to the ram last October and we have 150 lambs in the field today, then that's 1.5. That's our weaning rate. And look at, I suppose the target there for people is to be above 1.6. That's an old and long-established target that's there since the kind of 1980s. And it's one that, nationally, I suppose we don't achieve. A lot of, if we look at the National Farm Survey, we're generally around 1.3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe up to 1.4, depending on the year. But we do know, for example, that there are farmers out there that are consistently achieving that 1.6, and even people that are doing, above that, people who've kind of invested maybe in genetics and are looking at body condition and stuff like that going to the ram. And a lot of those sheep farmers would be, weaning maybe up to 1.7, 1.8, and even in some cases 1.9 lambs per ewe. So that's a big, that's one of the big drivers of profitability, and it's an easy one to measure at this time of the year.
It's really a great measure of performance, Michael. It's probably something that we don't stop and actually look at often enough on commercial farms. Where does that ewe performance rank relative to others? Look, when we're talking about performance, the other big aspect of performance, of course, of weaning is how well the lamb crop was done. It's a reflection of many things. What are the couple of things we can do with our lamb crop when we wean them? I know we're going to get them settled in and that, but is there a point in looking at how they've performed at this stage?
Yeah, Ciarán. So look at it. Often we would be saying what's the average weaning weight and 32, 33, 34 kilograms kind of their targets out there. And like averages are dangerous. I suppose we could have two flocks at the same average weaning rate. And yet, one of them would have an awful lot of very light lambs and an awful lot of heavy lambs. And that gives you a reasonable weaning rate. But, there's a significant issue there with a big number of lambs. What's better than maybe looking at the average weaning weight is to look at the different categories of weights that we have. So what percentage of the lambs fall in the less than 25 kilogram category? So that's, 0 to 25 kilograms. Should be very small numbers on a lowland flock in that particular category. Then 25 to 30 kilograms is the next category. Those are basically lambs that need a lot of feeding. They're lambs that haven't done that terribly well and, are going to be around for a long time. So those are the lambs generally we'd probably be marketing in October and November. And then we have the lambs that are in that 30 to 35 kilogram category. So those are lambs that have done quite well, but they're still a bit away from where we need to get. And our last category then is our lambs over 35 kilograms. So in that category at weaning time, generally, you'll have a number of lambs that are kind of 42 kilos and above, and those are lambs that are really ready to go for slaughter straight away. And I suppose then between that 35 and 42 kilogram lambs, You'll have lambs that are really, in the what we'd call a finishing group. A lot of farmers are basically taking them out and giving them a small bit of meal. And then basically what you have on the farm is you have two groups of lambs. You have a group of lambs that are 35 or 36 kilos plus. They're getting a little bit of meal, maybe 300 grams or 500 grams a day, depending on grass quality and supply. And then you have a bigger bunch of lighter lambs, sub that 35, 36 kilograms. And they're lambs basically that are on grass, getting real good quality grass. And basically we're watching things like parasites and minerals and stuff in them to keep them thriving. And basically, as we're selecting lambs out of the heavier bunch, which are going for slaughtering or finishing group, we're basically drafting off lambs from this lighter bunch into that finishing group as they kind of hit 35, 36, 37 kilos, move them on, give them a bit of meal and get them off the farm, and slaughtered. So that's the system, I suppose. What it does is it simplifies our system. Okay, we've got two groups of lambs rather than 3 or 4 groups of lambs. So we have a finishing group and a bigger group coming out, or following around that are grass fed. It reduces the amount of meal we're feeding. We're not feeding all the lambs on the farm. We're only feeding that particular finishing group. It makes better use of our grass as well at a time when there's lots of grass around on farms, and then we can run the ewes behind those to mop up and clean up the paddocks. So it's a nice system and it works well on farms. Reduces the amount of meal that we're feeding, but still props up the performance and keeps lamb moving off the farm.
It's a really useful exercise, Michael, at this time of year, as opposed to maybe waiting until September, realising we've a lot of lambs, what are we going to do with them? It does allow you to plan ahead.
Yeah, and you're not shoveling a lot of meal into an awful lot of lambs in at that stage. You're monitoring as you're going along, and I suppose that's the thing. Meal is very expensive this year, and people just want to be conscious of that. Like that, if you're a heavy meal feeder, the bills are going to be significantly up this year, compared to last year and previous years.
Just giving you a chance to target that feed. Look, you touched on some of this already, and maybe no harm. We're talking about some of them light lambs and poor performers. Culling ewes, one of the benefits this year is the ewe trade has held up very well. There's still good prices to be got for them. I suppose traditionally some might let them lay on. It is a time to go back and check those ewes, Michael, how to be formed. Is there anything else you'd be looking for this year in culling? Are we carrying too many passengers each year? Should this be the year that we cull harder?
Yeah, I suppose, there's a lot of talk this year about fertilizer and feed prices and oil prices, and all the prices are going up. I suppose that's the negative side of things. And the positive side of things, we've had historically high prices for lamb, meat and ewes as well. So, ewe prices are still very, very strong. People are getting big money for heavy cull ewes. In a lot of cases, cull ewes are making more than lambs are making. And I suppose there's an opportunity there for farmers to, at weaning time, go through the flock of ewes and have a look and see, which ewes didn't perform, which ewes have problems, and then basically weigh up your options. So if I pull out my ewes that didn't perform, so maybe these might be ewes that are in very good body condition but had very poor lambs. So, they obviously haven't milked or haven't put the effort into the lambs or haven't been able to milk. Should we be keeping those? There'll be ewes there maybe that have mastitis, or ewes that we've identified at some stage in the year from lambing all the way through to weaning, as identify them as culls. So maybe they were ewes that were continuously lame, or ewes that prolapsed at lambing time, or ewes that were had difficult births repeatedly, or whatever. So I think it's a good opportunity at weaning time to go through them. Ewes that are in good condition are making a good price in the factory. Time to offload them. There's a bit of cash coming in there as well. It's also a time maybe to go hard on culling, and particularly for people who have good performance records, maybe to pull out those bottom 10 or 15% and replace them with better ewe lambs, because it's probably one of the few years where the ewes are actually going to make more than the ewe lamb. So the opportunity loss in terms of keeping a ewe lamb that you're not going to sell, but you're getting a really strong price for that cull ewe. So there's an opportunity there for people, as you said, here to offload those passengers. It's also a time here, I suppose, maybe just to do some stats on that as well, and to have a look at why are we culling these ewes. If I've got 30 ewes here that I'm culling, and I'm culling 10 of them because they have mastitis, is that a high figure relative to the amount of ewes that I have? Is there a particular line there? Do I notice that a lot of these ewes are coming off a particular ram or a particular sire line? that are maybe more prone to mastitis, or the same with lameness, or am I culling a lot of ewes because they're repeat lame offenders? Is this something I need to look at? Maybe I need to improve on my handling facilities, my foot bedding facilities, to try and get on top of this and reduce it. And then look at things like prolapse, for example. Are we culling a lot of ewes for prolapse? Is there more than 1% of the ewes prolapsing every year? Do I need to look at my winter feed management? Do I need to look at how I'm feeding them, my truck space, feeding barriers, pen layout, the frequency of meal feeding? So this time of the year is a good time where everything is coming together. You have all of these figures under your fingertips, because the ewes are still on the farm, a lot of them anyway at this stage at weaning time, and you can very quickly and easily do a few sums, figure out where you are, benchmark yourself against some of the kind of performance indicators that are out there. What are the targets for these things, and then look at, if you find that you're at the wrong side of a particular target, you can take action in terms of addressing that, and hopefully find yourself in a better position next year and the year after.
Michael, it's an interesting one, that last aspect of it. And again, it's like a lot of these things with immediate action, but also a little bit of forward planning for next year and seeing can we do things slightly differently to reduce the instance of someone in case, or maybe up some output.
Yep, absolutely. And like we often talk about, monitoring performance and measuring performance, and look at, on a lot of farms we don't have great records, but at this time of the year when people are weaning, a lot of these records are under their nose. It's very easy to count the amount of lambs you have. It's easy to know how many ewes you left off to the ram last year. So a lot of these figures are very easy calculated at this particular time in the year. So it's probably the best time to do those couple of sums, even though you mightn't be acting on all of those, the feedback, from those sums. You might be acting on those for a couple of months' time, but at least you'll have them back in your head.
Michael, I think it's very useful, very timely at the moment. Always good having you on. Thanks again.
All right, thanks, Ciarán.
We're going to leave the episode there at this point. Again, as Michael has highlighted, it's a good opportunity to benchmark both ewe and lamb performance, see how the flock has done, what changes could be made for the coming season. It's also a good opportunity to plan ahead and budget ahead for those lambs we're going to be carrying into the autumn. Assess what the weights are, be realistic about finish times. That's it for me for this episode. Again, for any updates on our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Ciarán Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and get notified of any new episodes.